City. We're at Grand Prix Oklahoma City. I'm Ben Seck. This is Jacob Van Lunen. We actually have the final round of day one. The Hall of Famer Eric Froehlich and Nathanael Perigo. So Eric Ifro is on burn. So, we've mentioned that this is not a deck that, you would expect a player of like Eric's caliber to be playing, or at least, that's the general thinking about that.
Yeah, and the thing is, Eric feels like this deck is really well positioned for this weekend. And burn, for what it's worth, is well, let's hold your horses. Here we go.
Yeah, so as you might have already figured out, Nathanael is playing Affinity or Robots or whatever you would like to call it, but he's actually played 6 cards out on turn 1. Now, granted, a lot of them cost 0, and he'll probably need a more powerful follow-up for the next turn. But if he has something like a Cranial Plating or maybe a Master Ethereum, Master Ethereum, or maybe Steel Overseer, he's going to be able to pump up all those creatures really quickly. Eric, pointing the Lightning Helix at, what do you think is the most important card?
The Vault Scourge. The Lifelink, obviously, just a huge deal in this type of matchup. I mean, his other targets were also just, either ground 1/1s or Ornithopters, so I don't think he's going to be using a spell on any of those.
So it looks like Nathanael doesn't actually have any of the powerful cards that I was talking about. He does have an Edge Champion, which helps a little bit. It means he can block that Swiss Sphere and eventually start attacking.
Yeah, I mean, if he draws something like a Plating to go alongside the Edge Champion, then it's obviously going to close the game very quickly. One of the things that's really good about Affinity against a deck like Burn is that Burn often relies on opponents dealing themselves some amount of damage with their lands, and Affinity does not do that. So, I mean, the 2 lands that Nathanael have are like 2 Inkmoth Nexus. Now, how do you know when you should actually kind of like change gears and maybe go for a Poison Wind rather than rather than just like traditional damage? Usually it involves having an Arcbound Ravager in play and/or having a Cranial Plating, where you know that the Nexus is going to provide you with some way to just kill them all in one shot because of the infectability. And sometimes you just get put into a situation where Plan A doesn't work and you just start having to grind them out and try to attack them with lands.
Yeah, it looks like this might be one of those times because he's holding off Eric's force right now with his Edge Champion, but he can't really attack with it without jeopardizing his own life. So he attacks for 1 with his Inkmoth Nexus, doing 1 poison.
Yeah, not a lot of high impact cards here for Nathanael this game.
I'm surprised he actually didn't go for another attack with the Inkmoth Nexus with the other one, because he can actually activate. Do you see a good reason to avoid that?
I do not. I definitely would have sent with both, given the situation. And we have full information, by the way. He has no cards left in his hand now. I think attacking with both was correct there.
If we're really kind of struggling on land a little bit, though, nope. There, he's just drawn out of it. I think he spent a couple turns on 2 land.
So a Searing Blaze there. Pretty good one.
Yep. Also getting 3 out of that because he played the Mountain this turn. So Nathanael at 6, after that Lava Spike. And is kind of on a slow clock unless he actually can draw, something like a Plating or a Master of Ethereum. Ooh, Ravager.
Yeah, that'll do.
So
that'll do just fine.
Now let's see how many can he actually kill.
He cannot.
Though, if he actually attacked for 2 last turn, is it possible that he actually might have been able to actually be lethal this turn? I'm trying to figure it out. 3, 4, 5. No, not quite. Actually,
Yeah, he would have been 1 shy this turn
yeah.
as opposed to 2 shy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think he's deciding to do. Yeah, he's deciding to basically make it a 2-turn clock.
Yep. So now Eric going to be at 6 poison here. Does Eric have anything like a Molten Rain in his main deck?
So something interesting. He actually left himself. Oh,
Yep.
okay.
Well, that's it.
He just actually had 6 more points of damage. So, Ifro actually raced the poison of Nathanael's Affinity deck. I mean, it seemed like he didn't quite draw the powerful half of his deck. Didn't draw the Cranial Plate and didn't draw the Massive Theory. He only drew the Ravager right at the end.
Yeah, and that's the thing about Affinity is that the high impact cards are so important, but oftentimes you're forced to keep hands like that because something as small as a Signal Pest would have turned that hand into an extremely fast clock, and he's playing against an unknown opponent. So
he has 2 awesome decks at 8-0. Joshua Hoffeld with Abzan, as we were talking about before, drew Iafrate with 5-color humans. I mean, 5-color humans, is one of the newer decks of the format.
yeah, this deck has gained a lot of steam very quickly. I think there was 1 Magic Online PDQ where it accounted for 4 of the 8 slots of the top 8,
Wow.
which is kind of unheard of in Modern. It's something you see in Standard, but you never, ever see that in Modern. So people were really, really excited about this deck. But then as a result, we've started to see a lot more spot removal show up. Versions of this Abzan deck that play Engineered Explosives in the main have become more popular. And looking at this board right now, that would obviously be quite good.
Yeah, I mean, so it looks like Joshua's a little bit on the back foot here. I mean, not completely. He doesn't have that much of an offense.
Yeah.
A great Reflector Mage by Drew, bouncing the Tarmogoyf and allowing him to actually attack with everything.
Yeah, and I think that Joshua's going to be kind of priced into just blocking Nathalia's Lieutenant here.
Yeah, no, which means that Drew gets in for 5, if that's the case. Maybe he'll just take it. I mean, he takes 7s, he goes to 4. It's still, the next turn he's able to possibly, use the Scavenging Ooze ability to gain a little bit of life, also create a better blocker.
Yeah, I mean, that's an option. The problem is I think he wants to be using his mana more efficiently than putting it into the Scavenging Ooze right now, and we know that he has, I peeked a Siege Rhino in his hand, so I think he's probably going to want to be doing that.
Yeah, maybe if he could actually cast the Time Rogoff the next turn, but he can't because of the Reflector Mage. But yeah, so he did exactly what you thought. He traded his Scavenging Ooze for Drew's Thalia's Lieutenant. Now, okay, Siege Rhino, as you saw before, giving him a little bit more of a buffer. So Joshua moves up to 6, Drew down to 17. Sorry, up to 9 and Drew 17.
And Siege Rhino kind of just put the brakes on Drew's whole game plan. Powerful magic card.
Though, Kitestyl's actually getting in for 3. 2 for its 1 counter and its own power, and then the Exalted trigger from Noble Hierarch. So there's only a 2-turn clock for Joshua, so he hasn't really bought himself that much time.
Is that it looks like he's a Path Exile in his hand, though, which is very nice in this spot.
It's really nice, especially because there's a Lingering Souls underneath the Freebooter, and that actually allows him to, mount an offense after, coming up the ground here. Look at that. And so...
He does have to tap 1 more land for that.
Oh, yeah. So
we will not be able to crack a clue this turn.
We'll... yep, there you go. Drew pointing out the extra cost on the Thalia, which actually, it's as you say, quite relevant because he had the clues to crack.
Yeah.
Drew has another Thalia in his hand, so he's kind of a little bit unable to deploy more spells into play.
Yeah, and I mean, getting caught by Legend Rule a little bit here, but it looks like Drew did have, a pretty nice draw. Siege Rhino currently doing what Siege Rhino does. I've seen a lot of people kind of knock that card. When I was playing with it on Magic Online, I received people in chat saying, that thing costs 4. It doesn't really do that much. I mean, people play 4-mana cards that win the game in this format. What are you doing? And I think it's important for people to remember that what you say about Siege Rhino says a lot more about you than it does about Siege Rhino. So
he used to be so good, and then now he's just so disrespected now.
Yeah. Nobody. It's like they forgot who he was.
Okay. Okay. We're going to head back actually to our main match. It's starting up again. And so Nathanael was on the play. He put only 3 permanents into play on his first turn. So a Signal Pest, an Ornithopter, and a Bleakmoth Nexus. Eric tries to respond with a Monastery Swift Spear, but it's actually blocked by the Ornithopter. But he might as well try.
Yeah, I mean, you might as well try. You never know if they're going to play around Gut Shot or something crazy. And I think you would even want to trade your Ornithopter for the card there.
Okay, so Nathanael has one of the more powerful cards in his deck, the Cranial Plating, and he does have the Flyers to equip it to. So, Ifro's really kind of knows he's on a clock now.
Yeah, the thing about Ifro's version of the deck is I believe he has Destructive Revelries post board.
Yeah, he's 4 of those.
And those are pretty good at taking out the key cards from the Affinity deck while also continuing to apply pressure. So
it doesn't look like he has one in hand because it looks like he just has red cards.
Okay.
I think, as far as I can tell. Not that there's plenty of good red cards that he could be having. Any burn spell will buy him a turn's reprieve of the Cranial Plating, so that will help.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the big problems when you're playing a burn deck, especially against a deck like Affinity that doesn't deal themselves any damage, is that it's very hard to be able to afford to use burn spells on your opponent's creatures, especially when you're doing it to stop Cranial Plating.
Searing Blood.
It's a nice one.
Doing 3 to the Pest and 2 to Nathanael. Also triggering a Prowess, and the Swift Spear gets in. Okay. So the 2 cards in Nathaniel's hands are 2...
2 copies of Etched Champion.
Yeah. Yep. And what that really allows him to do is definitely get in with the Cranial Plating. So if the Cranial Plating sticks, he's going to actually be able to get through for a lot of damage.
It also, to some degree, blanks basically any sort of creature offense that Eric might have been trying to put together. Eric really needs to rely on spells to do the last 15 points of damage. And 15 points of damage is usually 5 spells.
Yeah.
So
I think it might be that Nathanael actually wants to draw a land. I think if he drew a Darksteel Citadel, that'd actually be very good because it allowed him to not only play another Etched Champion, but also equip the plating on the previous one. Because he really needs to start attacking pretty soon.
Mm-hmm.
So he draws... It looked like it was not a land. But all's not lost. I think you can still consider just equipping and attacking here.
I mean, it's interesting, though, because by doing so, he opens himself up. Right now, that Etched Champion is quite good on defense here against these pairs of Swift Spears.
Ooh, that's exactly the same as the Darksteel Citadel.
So it is. Well, that's pretty ideal draw step. I imagine he's going to play another Etched Champion and then suit something up and send him in.
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
he'll probably just suit up an Ornithopter, to be honest.
No, absolutely. He could probably suit up one of those and maybe just not attack with the Etched Champions at all.
Yeah, I agree. I think that would be a great line.
Or maybe he thinks he can take one hit from one creature and actually just attack with the Etched Champion and a suited up Ornithopter, or just the suited up Etched Champion.
I think it's a 3-turn clock, really, no matter how you cut it. So
okay,
he's doing it on the Etched Champion.
So he's playing his other champion. So he's, 2, 4, 5, 6.
8 power?
Yep. So it's 8 power, putting him to 11. The thing is, the next turn, he can actually animate the 2 Blink Boss Nexi and attack with them. So he actually might be lethal next turn.
Yeah, if he's able to draw an artifact that he can cast an addition on those things, then you're right, that would be a lethal attack. But that's under the presumption that he's not going to chump with one of these Ornithopters. And I would be surprised if he did not. Because the thing about the way Eric has played this game right now is that he suspended this Rift Bolt to get double prowess trigger on the following turn. And if he has, 2 or 3 burn spells to go with that cost 1 mana, then if Nathanael doesn't chump both of these, or block one of them with that champion, obviously, and chump the other, then he put himself in a situation where he could die.
So do you think he should have possibly just attacked with the Ornithopter last turn?
I think so. It's what I would have done, but I'm not quite ready to say that it was necessarily like a mistake. I think that
some of these lines are very, very complex because not only you're playing with your cards, you have to figure out what is your opponent's plan going to be, and so I think you laid out Iafrate's plan pretty well. Like playing the second Swift Spear, making sure the Rift Bolt was suspended.
Yeah. So now.
Okay, so he takes another 2. So there's now 2 prowess triggers. So they won't trade with the... They won't die to the Edge champion.
Yeah, they both have 3 power right now. Nathanael down to 12.
So he's going to be at least 9, perhaps more if he has a spell in hand. Nope, just a 3 brings him to 9. So now... Nathanael does not have enough artifacts to kill, as far as I can tell. So let's say he all-out attacks and animates all the creatures. Mm-hmm. So he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 artifacts. So that would be 8. I think he actually has lethal.
No, because he can attack with both champions.
Yep.
And he'll have the Metalcraft. So that's barring Eric having some sort of spot removal spell here.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I think he would rather do that because... if the only things he can kill are the Nexi, and so that's 3 damage that doesn't go to him.
That's true, yeah.
Okay.
So we get a 3rd game out of this.
These games are like fast and furious, as you would expect.
Yes. It's a race. It was an interesting race, though. I think both players, played that game very well. And I believe I was actually wrong about just attacking with the Ornithopter there. Yeah. Eric did have 2 lands in his hand, and I think that had he had...
Like a burn spell?
Yeah, a burn spell. Or if he had a Destructive Revelry, for example, that would have worked out horribly for Nathanael. It would have been a disaster, but...
It's possible the Destructive Revelry just he can't beat that card because it would hit the plating, and then he loses all the offense that he could possibly put together.
That's true. So maybe it was just like, I'm just going to lose that card. I might as well not play around it.
Right. Play a Meddling Mage. Invitational card of...
Chris Bakula?
Yep.
Saw he was at a play last night with his son.
Yes.
Looked like he was having a lot of fun.
Watching Hamilton. Very, very cool. Okay, so I think we're trying to figure out exactly what card is being named by the Meddling Mage. We'll see if we can...
Yeah, I would also be interested to find out. So, Joshua doing quite well here, though. He's at 17. He has an opponent who, after he pluses this Liliana, will have no cards left in hand, and he's just facing off against a pair of 2/2s. You got to feel pretty good as the Absent player in that spot. Like, you cast Lingering Souls and you're home free, right?
Yeah, he actually has Lingering Souls, and he has Gideon, Ally of Zendikar.
Oh, well, that's a real nice one.
Yeah. So, in theory, he's not able to actually protect the Liliana if Druid's willing to trade one of his creatures.
Yeah, and the thing is, though, by getting that Meddling Mage off the table, it may turn on other cards that he has.
Okay, now, so what he could do is he's just attacking with 1. He doesn't want to lose the Meddling Mage. Joshua's pretty much priced into blocking with his ally.
I believe so. I think that in doing so, you get to kill a creature as opposed to having that 2/2 in play. And you'd rather have, I think, any of those 3 creatures off the battlefield than.
Mm-hmm. Now, I think that he's hoping that he would sack the Thalia, but I don't think it was going to happen because the reason he was hoping for that, because he has a Lingering Soul in his hand. Lingering Souls, generally, you want to keep it there to block.
He might just fetch up a basic here, just only falling to 16. And he picked up his deck. Oh, well, this is rough. The Thalia actually made that land to come into play tapped, and then he picked up his deck immediately. So he is not allowed to do that.
Hopefully, it'll be just a quick judge call here. It was pretty clear that Joshua just made a small error. I don't think it was intentional.
Oh yeah, I do not think it was intentional either. So something interesting here, though, is that had Josh been able to play that land untapped, he could have made 4 flying tokens and then just made an emblem with this Gideon.
Oh.
And yes, all those flying tokens would have came into play tapped, but then it seems like he would have been in a pretty good spot for the remainder of the game with that Gideon emblem alongside those Lingering Soul tokens.
Yeah. So we're just going to wait for the judge call here. Okay, so yep. So I think he just got just a small warning there. Put the Verdant Catacombs into play tapped. He's basically given up the Gideon. I mean,
yeah, I'm somewhat surprised he chose to do it this way.
Okay, our main match is going to start game 3, so we're going to head back over there. Okay, Eric's on the play again. Now he went turn 1 Goblin Guide. Nathanael with his trademark fast start, playing Vault Scourge, Stringless Drum, Ornithopter, and a Blickblock Nexus.
Yeah, Vault Scourge, one of the few creatures out of Nathaniel's deck that are just 1-mana things that also happen to demand a removal spell. The lifelink on that means that every 3 turns that thing's in play, it not only is taking away Eric Froehlich's life total, but it's also invalidating cards that he has in his deck, cards like Lava Spike. So I'm sure we're going to see Eric get that off the table before he passes the turn here.
So he has a few options. I mean, he does have a Eidolon, which actually is Eidolon of Great Revelry.
Yeah, and so if he plays Eidolon, it's the Vault Scourge is still going to be attacking him. I think Eidolon's very good against the Affinity deck, and you do want it down early, but I feel like you need to get this Vault Scourge off the table.
The funny thing is the information that he gets with the Master of Ethereum on top of his deck because of the Goblin Guide means he may actually play this a little slow, because what he's expecting Nathanael to play it out. He actually has a Destructive Revelry in his hand. So he's going to try and, let's call it, tempt Nathanael to play it out and then use the Revelry to destroy the Master. I mean, he could choose to do the Scourge, but I think the Master is a pretty clear and present problem.
Absolutely. I think the Master represents a lot more size. But him having that Master does change things. You're right. I think that
sometimes the Goblin Guide ability can, just be very positive for you.
Yeah. So here, let's see. Is Eric going to kill this before it hits him? I imagine he would. It would greatly surprise me if he would allow Nathanael to lifelink here. That, is such a,
especially
a
when
wrench thrown in his gears.
Yeah, especially when you have a card like Searing Blaze, because it has to hit a creature at some point. So this is one as good as any. In fact, it will kind of present a little bit more of a swing because it does 3 when a land comes into play. Nathanael could have probably guessed that was going to happen because Eric didn't play a card on turn 2, but didn't crack his Arid Mazer.
Yeah, so chose to still have access to landfall here on his second turn.
But actually buying himself like an entire attack set here, which is actually really, really important, because these games just are kind of like so swingy, and so if you can kind of steal a little bit of the initiative back by like blunting an attack step, it's really important.
So Nathanael going to just cast this Vault Scourge.
Yeah,
the good old-fashioned way.
I think he thinks that the 2 life that you lose from using the Phyrexian mana is not quite worth it. Now,
yeah, I mean that's very relevant in a matchup like this. And you think the lifelink's so good, but in reality they always just kill it, and then you had paid 2 life for it, so cause some problems.
So Eric has to navigate this a little carefully. He knows about the Master of Ethereum in Nathaniel's hand, and so he has to make sure that he doesn't like leave himself to getting hit with a large shot from that Master of Ethereum, pumping up everyone else, and possibly lifelinking with a little more with the Vault Scourge.
Yeah.
Eric attacks with his Goblin Guide, and Nathanael like reveals the Galvanic Blast, which is also pretty interesting because it will allow him to actually like either get rid of the Goblin Guide or almost try and race back. So
I really like Eric's sideboarding plan here, though. By bringing in a bunch of Destructive Revelries, a bunch of Searing Bloods, he's able to slow Nathanael down while also still putting the pressure on him that he needs to. And so we don't really see Eric just firing bird spells at creatures unless they're lifelinkers.
Yep. So what he does is actually bolts the Vault Scourge and then plays Eidolon of the Great Revel.
Eidolon of the Great Revel, an extremely powerful Magic card. If you've played against it, it's just a nightmare. Well, you know what I really like doing to Eidolon of Great Revel? Nahiri the Harbinger. You can kill it while it's untapped because it's an enchantment. And it costs 4 mana, so you don't take damage from it. So that's you guys are looking for a good answer to Eidolon of the Great Revel? If you're playing some sort of Jeskai control deck, Nahiri the Harbinger. That's the one for you.
Nearly every card in the Affinity deck, I think every card in the Affinity deck, non-land card in the Affinity deck triggers the damage from the Eidolon. So he does have the Galvanic Blast, but the problem is if you cast the Galvanic Blast, he basically declines to either play the
Edge Champion or the Master.
Right.
Wow.
He does have another Vault Scourge, so he does that. Just takes the 2. Kind of decides that that's going to put him in the most jeopardy. Takes 1 damage to play the Vault Scourge. Now puts Nathanael to 7, so he does not have a lot of life left. And so if Iafrate has like a couple burn spells, this is going to be almost impossible for Nathanael to come back from. Okay, another Goblin Guide from Iafrate. It's a Mox Opal, which produces mana, but it is not on land, so he's not able to actually get that for free off that Goblin Guide. Nathanael's throwing away a card to...
And this puts him dead to Burrow's Charm if Eric has it.
Yep.
Not sure if he does, though.
Don't think he does. And if there is a way to... Like, he probably plays the Master of Ethereum probably to gain 2. Put himself to 6, and then possibly keep everyone else back.
I imagine Eric, is going to be very frustrated if he does not have a removal spell for this extra copy of Vault Scourge. We played the game in such a way to prevent this situation from happening. This is the 3rd Vault Scourge, but if he does have an answer to that Vault Scourge, things are looking very, very good for him. Nathaniel's life total down to 4 now.
Yep. Goes for the Master of Ethereum. Now, I wonder if he's going to attack with his single pest, because it does actually get him an extra life.
It does.
Pumping up the Vault Scourge, making...
But it prevents 2 damage on defense in the following turn.
Only if he chumps, though. That's the thing. It's like he may be a kind of a wash. It's hard to tell. It depends if Iafrate is willing to throw away one of his Goblin Guides into the Master of Ethereum. Well, okay, here's the Revelry that we talked about earlier.
Wow.
So now Nathanael going to 2. Then
Oh, he's not targeting the. Also, he's targeting a signal pest, and this puts Nathanael at 3. But in the same sense, it makes it so that Nathanael does not have a blocker for these Goblin Guides, and are going to be able to charge in here.
okay, so he's forced to chump.
Mm-hmm.
Nathanael going down to 1, but it looks like Eric does not have a follow up here, and with that master, he might actually pull away here.
Yeah, it's true.
He's going to cast his master.
It'll put Nathanael back up to 3 after the attack step, right?
Right, and so what might happen is, Eric really has to draw a burn spell.
Yeah.
He's got like 1 or 2 turns to draw a burn spell before it gets out of hand too much. Okay. Nathanael attacks with his 2/2 lifelinker, bringing him to 3, and Eric down to 12. He sacrifices his Wooded Foothills. Like most of the burn spells in his deck.
Yeah. So basically, any non-land card, because even like just a haste creature is good enough here, right?
Yeah.
It's at 3. So
The things that don't quite work is the, let's see.
I think they all work. I think he needs to draw non-land. Eidolon does not work. You're right.
But
traditionally one of his best cards in this matchup too.
Yeah, I think Eidolon a land or Eidolon is bad for him. Everything else seems to be good as far as I can tell. He draws another land. He draws a Bloodstained Mire.
Yeah.
Now he's got to figure out, should he attack? Because if he attacks, what it does is it allows him to actually, it allows him to essentially have a chance of drawing a burn spell again. It's possible that Nathanael will actually activate. No, he can't double block.
Yeah, so I think he has to attack to keep Nathanael in burn range, but in doing so, the next turn he's going to be facing off against S Champion. Do we know what was that? There was another master.
No. So we know he only has 1 card in hand. So
okay.
So the thing here is he's got 1 turn. He's basically, because we know that the Signal Pest is coming out. We know that he has the champion. So like it's pretty clear that Eric is not going to be able to attack pretty much ever again.
Yeah.
And so with Nathanael at 1, he's going to go up to 3 with the Vault Scourge attack, and probably actually take a chunk with the Master attack as well. I would think that he'd attack with the Master because he really needs to,
turn the corner. If you will.
Turn the corner.
I think he can not attack with the Master for. Oh no, I guess if he has a Signal Pest, he probably wants to. I think it's just 2 turns anyway, though.
Yeah.
And next turn, the Affinity player will win unless Eric is able to draw a burn spell.
Ooh, this is interesting. He's attacking. He does not have lethal as far as I can tell, right? He has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, he actually might have lethal.
Is that exactly 11?
Yeah, that is exactly 11. And wow.
Yeah, Eric, a few turns to draw that burn spell. Didn't quite do it.
Okay. This is the end of the final round, and we'll be back after these messages.